Hello to everyone, to today's episode number 2 with Malfono George Kiraz here at our Kano live talk show. We will talk with Dr. George Kiraz about his biography, the founding of Gorgias Press and the concept of home. What does home mean to him and how does he preserve the Syriac Aramaic heritage? Welcome Malfono.
Tawdi. I'm sorry I'm a bit late, fashionably late maybe.
All good.
Sagi, I had a full day.
All good. Because for you it's now lunchtime, right? So
it is lunchtime and I just had my lunch.
Yeah, correctly. So before we start our dialogue, our javate, how we also used to say in Syrio, I want to briefly introduce you, do the heavy lifting so that people know what you are working at, what your projects are. So you are the founder and director of Beth Mardutho, the Syriac Institute, the editor-in-chief of Gorgias Press, and a senior research associate at the Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton. You earned 2 master's degrees, one in Syrian Studies from the University of Oxford and one in philosophy from the University of Cambridge, where you also did your PhD. You published extensively in the fields of computational linguistics, Syriac studies, and the digital humanities. And when I say extensively, I mean extensively. I just checked it up. Amazon says that you published 44 books. You are an ordained deacon of the rank of Evangeloio, Gospeler, in the Syriac Orthodox Church, where you also serve on several committees. You live in New Jersey, in the US, with your wife, Christine, and your 3 children. We are happy to have you here today, Malfono.
Tawdi Sagi, and I'm very happy to be with you.
So, Malfono, when I researched your projects, your life, what you did in your life, there was one question popping up in my mind directly. And this question was, how is this person, where does this motivation comes from to dedicate your whole life to the Syriac culture and heritage? So where does this motivation come from?
I think the roots of the motivation typically come from the family and from your surroundings. So when I grew up, both my mother and my father, the Syrio heritage was very important for them. They sent us to study Syriac with Abuna, with the Kashisho, and it began from there. Now there is at some point it goes from normality to abnormality, to obsession. Yeah. I call it a disease sometimes. You know, that's when you get the bug and you get the disease. And somehow, you know, on the way, it seems I have gotten that disease, and that drives you.
Yeah, because when I researched, correct me, you were born in Bethlehem, right?
Correct.
And in your family you speak Arabic as a mother tongue.
Correct. My father's side, they spoke Turkish and Armenian because they're from Kharput. Suryoye from Kharput speak Turkish and Armenian. My mother's side, they're from Azekh, they speak Arabic, and of course Bethlehem itself is an Arabic-speaking town.
And how can I imagine if you are there in this Arabic surroundings, most of the people speak Arabic, but for sure in church you hear Fabanoyo, Syriac, and we also do this here in Germany when we go to church. But it's so different, and even if you don't speak Toroyo at home, then how does this, what was this moment? Was there a specific moment where you said, this catches me, or was it more gradually that you...
I think it was gradually. So I was sent with my sisters in the summer to study Suryoyo, and it was Abuna who wanted me to start to go to the church, because I was sent to boarding schools. So I grew up in boarding schools, and I believe you're in Germany, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I grew up in German schools, in German boarding schools, and these are Lutheran usually, Evangelische. They're Lutheran. And in the summer only, I would be at home studying Syriac with Abuna in the summer vacations. So sometimes during the school year, I think Abuna, asked my father, bring him to church, to go on the altar. you become an altar boy, shamosho, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was young. I don't know, maybe I was 7 or 8. I can't remember. When I was sent there, and uh, of course it was strange. The first Sunday, I grew up in the boarding school. We had morning and evening prayer, but it's all of the Lutheran type. So this was very strange for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but gradually, I fell in love with it, and more so, I fell in love with the Gudo and with the melodies and with the language. So it was gradual, as you said.
Mm-hmm. So this was in your youth. Where did the point come where you said, okay, I want to study it, I want to do it professionally?
So when I was in my early teens, uh, I began, for some reason, maybe I was 12 or 13, maybe. I said I want to have a book collection, just to have a book collection,
Mm-hmm.
not to read them, but just to have a book collection. My father, he had a trolley. I don't know if you know what a trolley is. It's a small cabinet. You put on top of it something. We had a recorder on top of it, and he had some books there. So I took them to my room and I said I want to arrange them, just to have a collection of manuscripts and books. We had a few manuscripts as well. One written by my father's uncle was a Shamosho Evangeloyo, and he wrote a Shimo in the year 1900. So I had those, and then I began to read them. And when
Okay.
I began to read them, I became obsessed with Suryoyo history. Who are we? We because we live in different surroundings. In school, we don't learn anything about Suryoye.
Yeah.
In church, we only learned how to read, not even much comprehension.
And what was your answer back then on the question, who are we, and what is it today?
So I wanted like to read who are these Suryoye and learn more about our history. We didn't have that many books at the time. We had books by Patriarch Afram Barsom, by Patriarch Jacob, a few by Dulabani, and Patriarch Jacob I did mention. And so I started reading the church history and whatnot. And I wanted to know more and more about it. Then I began to go to libraries, research libraries. There's one between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. It's called Tantur. It's a Catholic research library at the university level, basically. And then I found more books there. And I just kept reading and reading. And then I wanted to become a writer. I wanted to write myself. So I began to write. Of course, now you have a teenager writing, not academic writing. And that became my obsession, that I want to become a writer. I want to be, my model was Patriarch Avram Barsom. I wanted to become a writer like him. I didn't know him, obviously. He died before I was born, but that was my model. And and I went after it. And then Deiroyo Elio, he's now in our monastery in Holland. He was a Deiroyo in Jerusalem. He taught me calligraphy, how to write with ink, and he made. I will show you. People can see me, right?
Yes, they can see you. You're on the screen.
Yes. So just behind me. He made this for me. I don't know if people know what this is. It's a plank of wood with threads, like lines, and a column, and you put a blank sheet on top of it, like this. I mean, this is not a blank sheet, but you put it, and with your thumb you press, and you make lines. And this is how when you look at manuscripts, they are straight. It's not by magic. They do this.
Now we
And
know.
the line, because you're pressing on it, the line will fade. You will not see it after 5 years, but the writing will stay straight. So this is from that time. I still have it. I was 15 when he made this for me, or 14. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this moment, I can imagine as a 15-year-old getting this present from a mentor. It's like it's an honor, and then you think like, okay, I have to continue, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And I was very sad when he left.
Yeah. And then when was the moment when you left Bethlehem then for your studies? Because now you're in the US, right?
Yes, we left in 1983. I finished high school, and by chance, my aunt in New Jersey was making immigration papers for us. And by chance, they take many years. And by chance, we received, after I graduated 1 month, we were thinking, what am I going to do? My only option is Bethlehem University, but I wanted to go to the US to study. It was not possible. And then we received a letter from the American embassy. The green cards are ready. And we had to pack and go very fast because the letter was dated before I was 18. And I had to leave before I became 18. Otherwise, my mom can go because my aunt made it for her sister. And as a minor, I can go with my mom. But when I am an adult, I cannot. They have to do papers for me, more years. So within, I think we heard in the summer, and by September we had to leave. Sorry, by November we had to leave.
Mm-hmm. So then you were in the US, and then you tried to find a university there to study, right?
Yeah. I mean, then once you're in US, it's easy. I went to the local community college. I started there. Then I attended. I went to Los Angeles, so one of the California universities in Northridge. I studied there. That I studied engineering, although I never worked as an engineer.
This is something we have in common. I also studied engineering, but I'm not working as an engineer.
Yes, okay. We're Syria. You have to be engineer or a lawyer or something.
Or a doctor. Doctor is the best thing.
Or a doctor. There you go.
Okay, then you did your bachelor's in engineering, and then the master's in Syriac studies followed, right?
Yeah, bachelor engineering. Then I wanted to do Syriac studies professionally. I knew Syria from the church, and I was even teaching the young people Syria. But I went to a conference, a symposium Syriacum in Louvain, in Belgium, with Bishop Chichek, and I met Sebastian Brock there, and I told him I would like to study Syrio professionally as an academician. I am reading the books from the church, but I want to read academic books. And he told me that they just started a master's program in Oxford. I applied. I was the first one to get accepted in this program.
Wow.
But I had to delay it 1 year because they said, come. I said, no, I didn't finish engineering yet. I still have 1 more year. I said, can I come the following year? They said, yes, you can come the following year.
And your parents will never allow you to just skip the engineering degree and then start studying masters, right?
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't do it either because, I mean, I spent already, 3 years,
yeah, true.
And I have this thing, which I also, teach it to my kids. You start something, you've got to finish it. Then do something else. But finish it, then move on.
So you finished, and then actually there was no time to relax. You just decided to go for your master's to Oxford.
Well, the master's was the relaxation because I thought I would work as an engineer. So I thought, okay, I will go do 1 year of Syriac in Oxford, and then I will go back and work as an engineer in the US. But after 1 week in Oxford, I said, heck with this, I'm staying. I like this. So then I after the PhD, the master's, I continued my studies in England.
And how was it to study in Oxford with Sebastian Brock? Because he's well known on the field of Syriac studies, so you were directly on the source of, let's say, on the pulse of Syriac studies. How was it?
Yes, it was really special moments because even at that time, Syriac studies was much smaller than what it is today. And because Sebastian is the hub, I felt that I was in the center of Syriac studies, although I just started. I was a student. But, I would go to Sebastian to read, and he would, we also do Javate. So he would say, oh, I received a letter today from this scholar and that scholar, and they're working on this, and they're working on that. So I felt like, that was the social media, all of it with Sebastian, yeah? So I felt I knew everything about anybody that was writing to Sebastian. He would tell me, oh, there's a project here, there's a project there. So I was aware of what was going on. It was really special.
So we were in Oxford with Sebastian Brock doing this Javatat, and then you finished your master's there. And from there you did another master, right? In Cambridge. What was the idea behind it?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't by choice. They forced me. So when I finished my master's in Syriac, the question was what to do the PhD on. And Sebastian said, I would love to have you do it in Syriac, but you have to know that the job market is difficult. You have talent with computers, and computers were just starting. So this is 1990. Personal computers became popular only 5 years before. Mm-hmm. They started earlier, but they became popular only a few years before. So this is the beginning of computing to the public, basically. So it was clear one can get jobs in computing. Mm-hmm. And then I showed him a book that I found one day. I was in a bookshop before I went to Oxford, and from a distance I saw this book with Egyptian hieroglyphics on the cover, and with zeros and ones like computers. Immediately that grabbed me. Mm-hmm. I went, and the book was called Natural Language Processing. I opened it and I started reading, then I bought it, and it was about how do you model a human language with the computer.
Wow, this is like 30 years ago, and we still talk about it in terms of AI, right?
Yes.
Still the same topic.
All this AI you're talking about, we've been doing that stuff in the 90s, the infrastructure of it. The problem in the 90s, there was no computer power to be able to do AI, but the methodologies and the whatnot, we worked on those then. But now the computer power is allowing it to become a reality. So at any rate, to go back to the story, I showed the book to Sebastian, and he set me up in a meeting with somebody who knows about the subject in Oxford. And I thought, okay, I can do this. I can do Suryoyo with computers and Arabic, but it will be in computer science. This way I can combine them. Then they told me you cannot do it in Oxford. Oxford doesn't have this subject. You have to go to Cambridge. I went to Cambridge, and they liked me, and they said, okay. But they said the degree is called computational linguistics. So it's linguistics, but computationally. They said, we have a master's program. I said, yeah, but I want to do the PhD. Then they said, well, you don't know anything about linguistics. You've done engineering, you know Suryoyo, but you need to know linguistics also. So this degree, the master's degree, will prepare you. But I didn't have money to do it. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. I said, can I come to the class? Don't give me a degree. I will do it all. And then I'll start the PhD. They said, no, it doesn't work this way.
Would be too easy.
I had to do the second master's. Sebastian helped me. Bishop Cicek helped me, and I managed to do it.
Wow. So it's like maybe 8 to 10 years just studying engineering, then Syriac studies, then the next master's, and then the PhD.
Yeah. I was 10 years at universities.
And now I can imagine, now I understand the story. Now we will come to your projects. So you loved writing, you loved Syriac, Suryoyo, and you started to learn about computers. And then you started 2 projects, Gorgia Press and Beth Mardutho, the Syriac Institute. But let's start with the first one. So for our listeners out there, what is Gorgia Press and what's the goal behind it?
So Gorgia's Press was also out of necessity. Many things happen out of necessity. You don't plan.
The best things. The best things.
You don't plan them. As you know, my passion was Suryoyo. When I finished my PhD, I got a job at Bell Labs, which is a premier research place in the US. And although it was very nice to do just research in computational linguistics, I really wanted to do Suryoyo. So at that time, the .com companies were rising, and it's called the .com bubble, where all these companies were growing. People my age were becoming millionaires in a short period of time.
And lost everything also in a couple of minutes.
Out of the .com rise. So I said, I'm going to quit Bell Labs. I'm going to do this .com business, go to a startup, work for 3 to 5 years, become this millionaire, and then endow myself and just do Suryoyo.
Good plan.
So I left Bell Labs and I did that in 1 month. I had, or 6 weeks maybe, I had 5-6 interviews, 5 job offers, giving you stock options, giving you good money, giving you everything. Everything was great. And I could see the stock options they gave me rising. I could see in the spreadsheet, reach the 1 million, the 2 million. But you could not use it until you are 1 year with the company. 9 months into the company, the .com crash came and everything crashed.
Okay, let's say technically on the paper you were a millionaire.
On the paper, I were a millionaire. And then it vanishes when the value of the stock is below the value that it was offered to you. You're not going to buy a stock for $25 when they offered it to you at 100. It became 200, 300, 400. Then you'll buy it at 100, sell it at 400. But then when it becomes $25, you're not going to do it because you're losing money. So that money evaporates. It just goes.
Okay,
And then I decided I don't want to work for companies anymore. I was depressed. It was bad time for me. And the company I was with, they were nice. Of course, they closed. We were all, we lost our jobs. All these companies that offered me jobs, within a week, none of them existed. Everything vanished. Then my company was nice. They gave us a severance package. They say, okay, here is some money, go away. I took that money. I started Gorgias Press, and that's how it started.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do on Gorgias Press?
So Gorgias Press publishes books, academic books. We do a lot of Suryoyo and Eastern Christianity, but we also do religion, Islam, Judaism, ancient Near East, biblical studies, all humanities mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we publish academic books.
Academic books. So you're publishing from academics to academics, right?
Correct.
And then
I always say we publish books that nobody wants to read.
Nobody wants to read. They're special people. Okay, interesting. So we learned you love writing. You became a publisher. Even after you were a millionaire, the initial plan didn't work out, but you still said, I want to do Suryoyo. Somehow you also do it still in Gorgias Press. Can you tell us maybe when you write, because it seems like it's your passion, how do you start writing? Where do you get the creativity to write, the inspiration? Where does it come from? How do you set your mood to write?
Yeah, so I am a bit chaotic because sometimes an idea comes either by reading a book, some other idea comes, or you're listening to a talk, or as my wife says, your projects usually are during the night. I wake up at 3 a.m. with some idea, and then I have to go write it down because then I'll forget by the time I wake up. Once the idea comes, I find it, I find it easier that if I just like sit down and write it and do it, rather than take a long time. Some projects take a long time. I just put on Facebook, I finished a book that I started in 1989, 35 years ago. Of
Wow.
course, it was on the shelf most of the time, but I just decided, okay, khalas, it needs to be done.
Yeah.
So kind of finished it. But sometimes an idea comes, like the memoirs, for example. It was a special time. It was COVID and nothing to do, and we're sitting at home. And I've always wanted to write my memoirs, but I would start and stop, start and stop. You're writing about yourself is boring, but it was the right time, and within 3-4 months I sat down and I wrote it. It was a story, so I kind of liked it, and that's how it went. Inspiration comes in different forms, depending on the situation of every book.
Yeah. So you just said you published your biography, and we also know that you're publishing in the field of Syriac studies on Gorgias Press. So what kind of role does it play in the preservation of our culture? Because in my view, when you write as a Syrio, your biography as a Bethlehem boy, how it was as a Syrio to grow up in Bethlehem, it's already preservation of Syrio history and culture. And you also published the Syriac Dot. We will talk in a minute about it. And you also published, you translated a Bible. You translated the Bible and in English. And maybe you can tell us why this Bible is, how it is linked to us Syriacs as well.
Yes. So we will start, if you want, with, because I forgot your first question.
So all these 3 books, how do they help us
yes,
to preserve
yes.
Syriac culture and heritage?
Yes, preservation. I mean, my story in Bethlehem, while, the book, of course, is my story and the story of my family, but a lot of it is the story of the other Suryoye who went through the same thing, Saifo, and then immigration, and then down south, all the way until they got to Bethlehem. So it represents them as well. It preserves the story of our family, but in a way, it's preserving the story of all the Suryoye who went through that. And we always write books about our history, but the recent history gets lost if nobody records it. And I am glad that people in Europe are starting also to write the stories of their parents, like Gabriel Aslan in Holland did it. My friend Stire did it also in Dutch. Preserving these stories is important because Syriac scholars work usually on earlier things, on more Ephraim and more Jacob and on the early history. And not too many people work on the contemporary history. So the preservation of family history is really important. As for the dot, for example, of course, that's language is really my passion. So I get crazy about when it comes to dots and silly things like that. But you asked me, how do you come up with the idea and the motivation? The Syriac dot, for example, I was simply reading a book, English book, about English spelling. English spelling is a nightmare.
Yes.
But the author is writing a book to the general public and giving some rules and making some sense of it in a evocative way, in a storytelling way. And while I was reading it, I said, this style is perfect for the Syriac dot, because the Syriac dot makes everybody crazy who reads Suryoyo. You go on the Fanqitho and you're looking at all these dots and everybody is crazy and nobody knows what is going on with all these dots. So I thought, since this is a subject that everybody is asking questions about, maybe I can write it as a story as well. So that's where the inspiration came from. At the same time, it is preserving a history, but also it's teaching. It's teaching people
Understood.
something about the dots. As for the Bible, I have it here next to me. Let me grab it. So you're talking about this,
This
which
one, yeah.
is in Suryoyo and English. Yeah, one
Mm-hmm.
side is Suryoyo, one side in English. It is the Pshito, and now we're working on the Old Testament as well. I had 2 meetings today about this. Every week we work. We have committees that work on this. So I did not translate. You said, you translated it. I am the general editor. We don't allow anyone whose whose native language is not English to translate. The translators know Suryoyo, scholars who know Suryoyo, who know biblical studies, but they must be natives of English. So, for example, there are very good German scholars of Suryoyo, like Andreas Jukel, Dutch ones, for example, like Luc van Rompuy, but they're not involved in the English project. More Polycarpos started the Gospels based on our project in Dutch, and Professor Lucas van Rompuy is leading that, but they can, it's their native language, Dutch, because we want the English to be fluent. Yeah. And how it relates to our church, the Bible comes to us in different recensions and in different versions. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew and Aramaic, the New Testament in Greek, but the Suryoyo translated it into Suryoyo, the Old Testament, by the 2nd century. By the 4th century, we have the New Testament, and this became the Bible of the church. When Mor Ephraim is writing a commentary, he's not writing a commentary on the English King James or on your German Bible. Yeah, when Mor Jacob of Surug is writing a Memro, he's writing the Memro with the Pshito in his head. So it's important for us in church to read our version of the Bible, translated into English or Dutch, or you guys maybe can start a project with German, not to take a German Bible, but to translate from the Pshito, because there are differences, because the Pshito is a very early text. These texts developed. So when the Syriac, although was written from Greek, you have Syriac. Greek changed and developed a bit. The German is based on that. Suryoyo is still here, So that's why sometimes people ask, why is there a difference? It is for these reasons that there are differences, and to make sense of it, sense of our liturgy, which is based on the Pshito, we should really, in my opinion, read the Pshito in Bible studies, in the churches, and all of that.
And I also heard you saying in another podcast, this is something a lot of Suryoyo from the Middle East can't grasp, because when you think about the Quran, they say there's like one form of recitation, or like one wording, because it's directly from God. When we talk about the Bible, this is what you're saying here, there are different versions, because in time, somehow it developed differently in different areas.
Correct. I mean, it is inspired, of course. It is inspired, and we believe that the text is inspired. And in the creed we say the Holy Spirit spoke through through the prophets and the apostles, and these are human beings, of course. And then after that comes the people who copied it, and the copyists. And the copyists are also human beings. And this is how the text is transmitted to us. It is inspired, but it is transmitted to us by human beings. We have to always, keep that in mind. It's not right or wrong. It's different traditions. I don't expect, a Lutheran not to use the Luther Bible. It's their tradition. They should be using the Luther Bible. But this is our tradition. We should be using the Pshito Bible.
Okay, perfect. So we talked about your research work. We talked about Gorgias Press and the publishing work. And there's another big project in your life, and this is Beth Mardutho, the Syriac Institute. Can you also let us know a little bit more about Beth Mardutho? What is it? What are the goals? What do you offer there?
Yes, so Beth Mardutho, it started before Gorgias. When I was in Oxford and in Cambridge, working on projects using the computer for the service of Syriac. As went from one project to the next, I talked to Sebastian Brock and I said it will be nice if we have if we have an institute that can be an umbrella for these projects. So we started what then we called the Syriac Computing Institute, SYRCOM, Syriac Computing. And then once I came here to the US, we started doing an online journal, and we started getting more into academic, mainstream academic things. The SYRCOM was renamed to Beth Mardutho. I had this vision. It did not happen, but I had this vision that we will have a center for Suryoye from all traditions that can come and study Syriac, so Suryoye can become academicians, kind of a dairo, but for scholars, not for
scholars. Okay.
Yeah, that was the Asmad and Hoye and Maronites. That was the kind of dream. But when you have children, you cannot dictate what's going to happen to them. They decide. You guide them, but then they go in different paths. Beth Mardutho went on its own, but it's a viable institute now, and our projects still deal with computing. If you go to www.bethmardutho.org, you will see many projects. Next week we will release a big project, over 20 million words of Suryoyo texts in a database you can search. It will be on www.bethmardutho.org. We're going to release it. I'm going Thursday to San Diego. We have a big conference. We will be launching it at that conference.
It's very interesting to hear. So you have this whole database with the words, and everyone knows ChatGPT, and now you can plug in a text and tell them translate to any language, but there's no Suryoyo translation yet. So with your computational background, could we work on something like that?
Actually, ChatGPT is starting. We're thinking about using our text to build models, but ChatGPT already has, not perfect, but I was in Erbil a month ago. I gave a paper about AI, and I took a text by Mor Ishaq of Antioch that has never been published, which means it was not possible for ChatGPT to see it. It was still in a manuscript in the British Library. And we gave it to ChatGPT, and we said, translate into English. It did an okay job, not an excellent job, but it did an okay job.
So it means if I want to read Morafrem, I don't need to learn Syriac, to get the idea at least. I can just put it into ChatGPT and I will get a translation to somehow grasp the idea.
Yes, but do learn Syriac.
Yeah. And I can also say, I just checked your webpage. You also yearly offer Syriac, let's say, crash course in 3 weeks. And as I read, it's in the US, in New Jersey. And you offer, or the aim is that people can, at the end of the course, also translate text and understand the text, right?
Correct. So we have a 3-week course, intensive. You will come to us not knowing Suryoyo. If you know a bit, it's okay, but it assumes that you don't know Suryoyo. And within 3 weeks, we teach you enough Suryoyo that you will be able to read texts. Here's the textbook is here, called the New Syriac Primer. So I'm just going to open a page in the last chapter, so you see what kind of text. For example, this is from the Chronicle of the flood of Edessa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're able to translate a text like this. I think there's a text by Mor Felicianus of Mabug. You should be able to translate that, of course, with a dictionary, not without a dictionary, but with a dictionary, you should be able to translate that such text. This is, for example, here, Mor Felicianus of Mabug, and they're able to translate after
3 weeks.
In the third week. In the third week.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in the first 2 weeks. Yeah, so we have these teaching techniques, and this is every summer in New Jersey, but it's also on Zoom. You can join by Zoom if you want to. So if you go to bethmardutho.org, you can register. And I was invited for January. I will be in England if it's closer to some people. If somebody wants to hop from Europe to England in this third week of January, I believe, an intensive course.
Wow, yeah. Actually, when I was checking it, I also talked with my brother and said, like, wow, that's actually a great opportunity to learn Syriac from the ground. When we say Syrioyo, in this case, it's Thobonoyo, not the Toroyo.
Yeah.
And it's also reasonable for the price. So 3 weeks education for such a low price, I think it's worth it for everyone who wants to learn reading Syriac.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to keep the price down so that, just to make it viable to people. I mean, usually these courses, if you take them elsewhere in different languages, they're about triple the price.
Yeah. So Malfono, we already talked 40 minutes. I will open up for the Q&A. I have so much more questions on my side, but maybe I'll open up for the Q&A because there's some other people here on the call. So now to everyone who is on the call, if you have questions, please raise your hand and then I will tell your name. You can unmute yourself. If it is possible, turn on your camera so that we can also see you. And then ask a question, and after you ask your question, please mute yourself again. But before we start with actually asking the questions here in the room, Susie, one question. Is there any question in the YouTube chat?
Shlomo Melfono. It's me, Susie. Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Yeah. My camera isn't working, but yeah, Shaprono. But I think we don't have a question in the chat.
All right. Then
Yeah, it's just a person asked, is there a Peshitta Bible translated to English or German? So, yeah.
Yes, our project is translating the Pshito into English, but not German, only into English. And we have a project with more Polycarpus, translating the Gospels. Now it's only Gospels into Dutch.
okay, thank you. We have a question from Andraus. So please unmute yourself, Andraus, and ask your question. And maybe turn on your camera if it's possible.
I'm a little bit in an unprofessional surrounding, but it's possible, no problem. And you will see my little baby with me.
Wow.
Shlomo.
Sabday, Mar Shlomo, Mar Hallo. Okay, he just woke up. He should be sleeping, but babies are unpredictable sometimes. My question is, you have been in Erbil in the Syriac summit just 2 months ago, I think. Can you a little bit tell us about the summit? How was it? I think it was maybe the first time in Iraq. It's from my point of view, it's something great and also unexpected that it took place there. I saw some pictures on Facebook and social media, and it looked really amazing. A lot of people, at least from the pictures. Can you a little bit explain how was it? How was your impression? And do you feel that Syriac studies and our language is becoming more and more popular in the academic world? This is somehow my impression. That's also a question. And the last question is how is, from your perspective, the situation, let's say, in North Iraq, for our people?
Yeah, so I was positively surprised when I went to Erbil. I was invited to this Athra symposium, or they called it the first Athra symposium. Maybe there will be others. So there are institutions in the north, in the north region, in Iraq that are governmental, basically institutions. They have a center for Syriac studies. There is a museum. There is a library. I think my understanding was that the Center of Syriac Studies is employing something like 150 people. Like
Wow.
it's amazing, and they have publications. So they held this symposium, which is like any other symposium in the academy in that is held by universities. It was very well organized, and the interesting thing for me, coming from the US and for those of us also going from Europe, is to interact with Iraqi scholars, because usually we are interacting only with European and American scholars. So to interact with Iraqi scholars, both Christian and Muslim, Sunni and Shia, who are studying Syriac, who can read Syriac, who are talking about different aspects of Syriac. Also, they're interested in the Syriac heritage of Iraq, for example, of Takrit,
Okay.
things that maybe 20, 30 years ago the governments would not even be talking about. So this I found it very, very positive. As for the situation of the people in Iraq, I first met with Mar Awa, the patriarch of the Church of the East, and then with Mar Nicodemus, our bishop there, and had private meetings with them. So we talked with Liberty, and there are, as I said, all these positive activities going on, but the main problem is the immigration. That's the problem they face. Continuous immigration. I am sorry if the background noise. People are cleaning outside. So the immigration is the main problem that they mentioned, but they seem to have support. They seem to have the funding to do things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas, for the question. So thank you, Andreas, for the question. Are there any other questions from the participants here in the room? Okay, then I have some more questions, Malfono.
Go ahead.
Actually, there's one topic we didn't talk about it. I mentioned at the beginning that we want to talk about the concept of home as well. As we all know, we don't have a country anymore. We have the stones in the ground or the artifacts in the ground, but it doesn't belong anymore to for the Syrian. This home or this place, so there's no physical place. So how can we define home today? What is home for you, and how can we define it for us, Syria?
It's it's a difficult question, and it's a bit of a sad question. I always say, I mean, at least that's what I feel is, I feel as a nomad, you know, a nomad out there, but it's difficult to pinpoint to something where you could say, this is home. My father's family, for example, comes from Kharput. I visited Kharput once or twice, but you can't say it is home. It's your roots. I grew up in Bethlehem, and I was 18 when I left. But even there, it is even when we were growing up there, we did feel that we were immigrants there, because we went there after Saifo. So the way I feel about Bethlehem, or my father about Jerusalem, he grew up in Jerusalem, is not the same way a Palestinian would feel about it, because a Palestinian is having roots for generations there, while for us it was not generations. My father was not born there. My own father was not born there. And then we came here to the US, first Los Angeles, then England. Then I'm in New Jersey now. So between Los Angeles and New Jersey, is about 5-6 hours of flight. It's a huge distance. So this notion of home is lacking, and this is why we create this virtual home in our head, Beth Nahrian and whatnot. That's natural. It's a natural process. And from the beginning of the 20th century, when people were starting to think of umtho, of people, of nation, of these things, then we looked and we said, okay, well, Beth Nahrin, and now you have these songs about Beth Nahrin, songs about Tur Abdin, songs about this. It's a substitute. It becomes a virtual home. It's like in the Qurobo, for the past few hundred years, we stopped taking Qurbono or every Sunday. You just take it on special holidays. Now it's changing. If you notice, when the priest is holding the chalice and the fagro, they say, your body which we have eaten, fagro de khalnan, wadmukh yaqiro dishtinan, and your blood which we drank, nobody drank and nobody has eaten yet. And if you notice, people go with their hand like this on their mouth, like this on their mouth. They're taking the Qurbono virtually.
True. I never thought about it.
Virtually. And in the same manner, we are having this virtual homeland, because you need a homeland to feel that I am Suryoyo.
Yeah.
But the reality of the matter, we are all over the place.
Yeah, that's true. I can tell you personal stories where I felt home, because I was not raised with Suryoye. In our area, there were no Suryoye. It was just my uncles, my family. And I started, I think, when I was 18, I went for studying in a region where there are more Suryoye. And I found friends, Suryoye friends, and I don't know why, but every time when we did Jawat and when we talked about different topics, it doesn't have to be about Suryoye, but I felt different. I don't know, because when we used Suryoyo, somehow, I don't know, just the people, it felt like home, these moments. I don't know, when I meet my people, I can feel this. This is one thing. And I know another occasion, I studied also in Australia for a couple of months. And I was in Melbourne. And I visited the church there. And then people didn't know me, so they asked me, where are you from? Who is your grandfather? And so on. And then I met former neighbors of my grandfather. So my grandfather was in Germany, they're in Australia, but they know each other from Kamishli.
Ah, yes.
So they told me, we know your grandfather, we were very good friends, and so on, come with us, and so on. And they invited me after one day to eat with them and everything. They told me stories about my grandfather, so I felt home. And similar things happened to me when I was in Sweden, when I studied in Sweden. I met people who said, like, oh, we are relatives or somehow, and invited me to their home, so I felt home. And even for me, last year it was the first time going to Tur Abdin. In Mardin, I didn't feel that, but when I was on Tur Islo, I don't know, I never saw Tur Abdin before, just from the stories of my grandfather. But somehow I felt home. I don't know why.
No, true. I mean, and it is amazing. I mean, I travel a lot also, and you just go into a Suryoyo home, or you go into a church, or you go into a hudro, and although you would be in a country that you're a foreigner there, either Holland or Germany or Sweden when I go, or whatever, all of a sudden you are home, yeah, and they make you feel at home. You feel relaxed, as if you are at home, and it's our post safer life that kind of creates that context.
Yeah. Do you think it's something like what we start today? We are interviewing you. You're in the US. We are in Germany. We speak in English so that everyone can understand. Most of the young generation understands. Mm-hmm. I know you were also in another podcast, Logos, from our Dutch friends. So do you think this could be a way for us to connect globally, to somehow build a virtual home?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is technology now allows us to have these virtual homes as well, to be together. But it is also nice to have the physical touch. And I wonder if your groups, the groups of the youth. I know there is SIG, and you do SIG here and there, which is also positive. But also the different groups, maybe you can organize visits, maybe not always transatlantic because it can get expensive, but make more of an effort to visit the groups in Sweden, in Germany, in Holland. They are next to you, in Paris. Establishing these, it establishes these bonds.
Yeah, I know what you mean. This is something what we do partially. Like every year there's some exchange, but then it's always like 20 people from Germany, 20 from Sweden, or 20 from Germany, 20 from Australia. So it's on a very small scale.
But that's good. I mean, it becomes chaotic if you take 200 people, but
that's true.
You can do 20 and then some other 20 will go, and you could do it that way.
What I also felt from what you said, beside of having a physical home and the people around us, there's also the language aspect. And I have the feeling from what we talked about in the last 1 hour is that somehow you also feel home when you read Syriac. And this is something what I feel, and this is what I also observed when I was in Brazil, because we have Syrian who are, before Saifo, they went to Brazil. Somehow the first thing what we lose, before we lose let's say the Syriac tradition of the church, the first thing what we lose is our language. How can we somehow counteract this one? Like somehow keeping the language? Is there, from your knowledge, from your experience, is there any way we can somehow preserve it on a bigger scale?
I mean, we can do as much as we can. The problem with language is that it's difficult to beat when you are living in foreign surroundings. But which means the only way to do it is to study it, because you're not going to grow up with Ktobonoyo. But the language is really a bond. I was in Armenia, in Achmiadzin. And there is a village of Assyrians from the Church of the East, from Urmia, who went to Armenia about 100 years ago. And they invited me to go there. So I went there. It was a distance. They sent a car, and they were quite nice. And I very much enjoyed that trip. I arrived, it was during liturgy, so I entered the church. And it's Ktobonoyo, of course, in the church. It's Syriac, but if you know Ktobonoyo, you know both. And you feel at home. Because of the language, you feel at home. Although the liturgy is different, it's a different tradition, but immediately you feel at home. So language is really a key to me, for keeping Syrio-Youth, for keeping the bond for people together.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to study it. But of course, we can't expect anybody. Everybody. Not everybody is a bookworm, and not everybody is is into spending hours studying. But those who can, you would really feel something when you learn it.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question from Andraus, so please feel free, Andraus.
Shlomo, my phone now. Regarding the language, there's endless discussion among our people. Should we teach Toroyo or shouldn't we teach Toroyo? There are a lot of, let's say, Kshamoshe clerics who are often against teaching Toroyo because they fear that Ktobonoyo will become weakened. if we start teaching Toroyo. And there's another, let's say, people who say, okay, the best way to strengthen Ktobonoyo, so Syriac Ktobonoyo, is to teach first Toroyo, because we speak Toroyo still, at least in Germany or in Sweden, in some areas we still speak Toroyo, so it's a spoken language. So the easiest, let's say, step is to teach Toroyo first, maybe give the kids a good level of Toroyo, and then make the next step to Ktobonoyo. So there are two parties, let's say, two ideas to this topic. How is your stand, or what is your view on this topic?
So when you learn a language, I think the first question you should ask is, what is the purpose? If the purpose is, I want to be able to speak at home, I want to be able to talk to my friends at church who know Toroyo, then clearly you need to learn Toroyo. If your purpose is, I want to understand what's going on in church, I want to read the Mazmure, or I want to read more Ephraim in the original, clearly you have to learn Ktobonoyo. Now, the big mistake, and this happens a lot in Arabic, for example, at Princeton and at other universities, when you start Arabic, they're teaching you both Ktobonoyo and the home language at the same time, which I think is a mistake. Because these are, although we call them Suryoyo, but they are two variants of Aramaic. You should learn one at a time. You know, you don't learn Hebrew and Arabic at the same time. You do one and then the next. One will help you with the next. It doesn't matter which one you learn first. You could learn Toroyo first. It will help you with Ktobonoyo. You could learn Arabic. It will help you with Ktobonoyo. You could learn Hebrew. It will help you with Ktobonoyo, because these are all Semitic languages. They're very close to each other. I don't think that learning Toroyo will weaken Ktobonoyo. If you don't want to read Ktobonoyo and that's not your intention, whether you learn Toroyo or not, it's not going to have any effect. So I think both should be taught. It doesn't mean each individual should learn both. If they want to, they can. It depends on what do you want. But don't go into a class wanting to learn both at the same time. You will learn neither.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was interesting, because we have this, it's an endless discussion. And in the last years, I think, you know, Professor Shabo Talai, he published the Shlomo Surait, I think is the name, or first book and second book, and also surait.com, the homepage, where you can learn Toroyo, let's say, in a systematic way. And their first Malfone, who based on this, they published teaching books for kids to teach Toroyo. So there's a little bit movement on this direction to say, okay, because our kids, especially the Syrian from Torabdin and Kozarto, who are more or less the only one who speak Toroyo or Surait, how you want to call it, they fear, or I have to say we, because I'm also one of them, we fear that our kids will forget the Toroyo, because that's what we are seeing right now. If you go to Netherlands or to Germany and you talk a very easy sentence in Toroyo to the kids, usually they don't understand.
Yes, correct. I mean, and again, I mean, for that purpose, you need to learn Toroyo, not Ktobonoyo, because at least some people can speak it in, you know, in the house. But you know, when your kid grows up a bit and they want to go to church and they want to go on the Gudo, then clearly they need to learn Ktobonoyo.
Sure.
So we shouldn't say either or.
No,
it depends on the context. It depends on when. Yeah.
Let's say the side who says let's teach Toroyo first, that's what they say is, let's teach Toroyo to the kids until they are, let's say, 10 or something, 10, 11. And then if somebody wants to become a Shamosho, etc., then teach them Ktobonoyo, because they already can read Ktobonoyo. If you teach them Toroyo on a Ktobonoyo letters, on the Syrian letters, they already can read, and they will understand a lot. And then it's maybe they will learn Ktobonoyo much faster than if the basis of Ktobonoyo is Dutch or it's German. Because Dutch and German are no Semitic languages. They are not supportive to learn Ktobonoyo at all.
It really depends. So I teach Syriac at the university in Princeton. And of course, whenever I have, most of my students, in fact, when they come, either they already know Hebrew or Arabic. Some Jewish students know Aramaic from home or from the religious community. They already know Jewish Aramaic. Of course, when they know these things, it is much easier. But it is easier for them not because they know these languages. It's because they studied these languages at in an academic way, not because they speak it. So because they were taught the grammatical system of Hebrew or of Arabic, then they can relate it to Suryoyo. Or if they know Suryoyo and then they go study Arabic, it's the same way, because the grammatical system is similar. Of course, that's the same works with Turoyo. But when you are teaching the kids Turoyo, you're not going to be teaching them the grammatical system. Your kid is not a university student, right? You're teaching them how to speak. So although that could help with some vocab, it's not your child who learned Turoyo and the other child who did not know any Turoyo are not going to have that much of a different of an experience. In fact, in some cases, the child who didn't know Turoyo could do a better job because in some cases, depending on the question, in some cases, Turoyo is misleading your child. The same way with my Arabic and Hebrew students. Knowing the system helps them a lot, but sometimes there are false cognates. There are things that have changed between these languages. And Arabic tricks them, Hebrew tricks them. So Turoyo could trick you sometimes. So it's not a clear answer this way or that way.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much for your opinion.
Thank you, Andreas, also for your question. So, Malfono, we took already over 1 hour from your time, but we want also to end the session with 2 more questions, easy ones, I promise. The first one is, because we learned about your past, we learned about what you're currently working on. What interests us is, what does the future look like for you? What projects are you currently preparing?
I'm trying to close my projects. I am aware of my age. I'm still in my 50s, trying not to get 60, but it's coming very soon. 60 is coming very soon, few months. Yeah. This Bible project is still going to take about 7 years or so. I need to finish it. And I showed you the language book. I'm also writing a detailed grammar of Suryoyo in about 5 volumes. This will take many years. So I tell people I'm not starting new projects. I need to finish these projects first.
Okay, that's good to know.
So I have that, and I am hoping to write the second part of my memoirs, which is life in the diaspora.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this would be probably interesting.
If I
for
finish
a lot
those,
of people.
I'll be happy.
They will be happy. Okay, so this leads me also to my last question. So when we want to learn, if someone wants to learn more about you, they can read first your biography. at second, how is it possible to learn more about your projects? How is it possible to contact you? Maybe you can say some words about this.
You can go to the website Beth Mardutho. Maybe you can write it on the
We will
video
link
at
it.
some point. Link it, yeah, bethmardutho.org. All our projects are there. And yeah, you could even see how you can, in Beth Mardutho, we have B'nai Beth Mardutho. You can become part of the B'nai Beth Mardutho, part of the community. It's a way to support Beth Mardutho. We have young people in Qamishli and elsewhere in the Middle East whom we are giving them jobs because the situation is difficult there. And instead of sending money to as help, we give them actually jobs. They feel better about it and about themselves. They're working on Suryoyo projects. You know, I told you about the 20 million word database. A lot of it's people from who are there, who are working with us on these projects. You can also take part of this project to support them, so we can continue to hire them. There are many ways to take part.
Okay. Thank you very much, Malfono. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for the last 40, 50 years working in the field of Syriac studies. Thank you for that, preserving our culture and heritage. To everyone out there in the live stream, this was our second episode. Each month we will have an episode. Next month again with someone special. Thank you very much, Malfono. See you soon, probably.
Taudi Sagi, Taudi to all of you, and keep it up.
Thank you.